Have you ever stood in a room full of people who claimed to love you, yet felt like you were fading into the walls? It's not a loud pain. It's a quiet one, like a pulse you can't shake thrumming beneath your skin. My name is Evelyn Marie Kessler, and I'm telling you this because I need you to feel it with me, to sit in this moment before I can show you what came next. If you're here listening, I'm grateful, and if you want to hear the whole story, every shadow, every secret, please hit that subscribe button. It means more than you know to have you with me. It was a heavy August evening in Virginia, the kind where the air wraps around you like a damp shawl, thick and unrelenting. The Kessler family reunion was at the community center, a tired brick building with sagging floors, and a ceiling fan that wheezed like it was on its last breath. I'd driven 2 hours to get there, my old hatchback rattling, over the back roads, my hands steady on the wheel, even as my chest tightened. I wore my best dress, navy blue, knee-length simple, but well-fitted, the one I'd bought for my mother's funeral 4 years ago. I'd hoped it would make me feel solid, like I belonged. The parking lot was packed when I pulled in pickup trucks and shiny SUVs glinting under the sodium lights. Laughter poured from the open doors, sharp and carefree, the kind that makes you feel like you've already missed the joke. I smoothed my dress, checked my reflection in the car window, my hair pinned neatly, my face plain but composed, and walked inside. The room was alive with motion, cousins, aunts, uncles, kids darting through the crowd, their sneakers squealing on the linoleum. Tables groaned under platters of fried chicken macaroni salad and pitchers of sweet tea, the air heavy with grease and cheap perfume. A banner sagged above the stage, Kessler Family Reunion, 2025. I stood just inside the doorway, my purse gripped in both hands, searching for a face that might light up at the sight of me. Nobody looked my way. Not my cousin Tanya, who was holding court near the dessert table, her laugh brassy and bold. Not my Aunt Lorraine, who was scolding a pack of kids, her voice like a whip. Not even my Uncle Ray, who'd once slipped me extra cookies when I was a girl, but now just gave a distracted nod before turning back to his drink. I took a step forward, then another, my flat silent on the floor. I was 47 years old, and I felt like a child again, hovering at the edge of a game I wasn't invited to play. Evelyn Tanya's voice cut through the noise, bright and jagged like broken glass. She waved me over her gold bracelets, clinking her smile too wide. My heart lifted for a moment, foolishly, hoping this time might be different. Come on, girl, don't just stand there like a stray. The table around her burst into laughter, and I felt heat crawl up my neck. I walked over my steps, measured like I was navigating a field of traps. Everybody you know, Evelyn Tanya, said, her voice thick, with something that wasn't quite kindness. Our resident babysitter, right? Always there to watch the kids when we need a night out. The laughter came again louder, and I saw my cousin Derek lean back in his chair smirking. What would we do without you? I've got to keep you busy, since you ain't got a man or a real job. The words hit like stones, each one sinking into me, heavy and cold. I stood there, my smile brittle, my purse still clutched like a lifeline. I wanted to speak, to say something sharp or clever, but my throat was locked, my voice buried somewhere I couldn't reach. I nodded, let out a small, hollow laugh, the kind that says, I'm fine, it's all fine. And Tanya turned back to her friends, already done with me. I slipped away my flats, whispering, and the room swallowed me up. There was no seat for me. Not at Tanya's table, crowded with her laughing friends. Not at the long table, where the older folks sat swapping stories over coffee. Not even at the kids' table, littered with crumpled napkins and half-eaten cornbread. I found a folding chair against the back wall in a corner, where the light barely reached, and sat down. My purse rested in my lap, my hands folded over it, and I watched the room move without me. My cousins traded tales of their promotions, their beach vacations, their new cars. My aunts bragged about their grandkids, their voices swelling with pride. I sipped a cup of tepid tea, the plastic cup slick with condensation, and thought, this is what it means to disappear. I could have left right then. I could have stood, walked out, let the screen door slap shut behind me, and driven back to my quiet house. But I stayed. I stayed because I'd promised my mother, before she died, that I'd keep the family close no matter what. I stayed because I'd spent my life honoring promises, even when they carved pieces out of me. And I stayed because somewhere deep in a place I rarely let myself touch, I hoped someone might see me. Not the Evelyn they laughed at, but the one I'd buried long ago. The evening dragged on the air, growing thicker, the chatter louder. Tanya took the stage, her heels clicking, to hand out the family awards. Silly certificates for things like Best Barbecue or Fastest Runner. The crowd clapped, cheered, hooted. I clapped too, my hands soft, my eyes on the floor. Then Tanya's voice sharpened, and I felt the air shift like a storm rolling in. And this one, she said, holding up a certificate, her lips curling into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. This is for Evelyn, for Best Babysitter. Come on up, Ev. Don't hide back there. The room erupted, some laughing, some murmuring, a few clapping out of pity. My heart stopped, then pounded a drumbeat in my chest. I didn't move. My hands were trembling, my purse slipping to the floor. Tanya waved the certificate, her smile frozen, waiting for me to walk up and let the moment consume me. I don't know how long I sat there, the room tilting, the laughter pressing against my lungs. My jaw was tight, my eyes burning, but I didn't go up. I didn't take the certificate. I just sat, my hands knotted in my lap, and I thought, they don't know. They don't know who I am. And in that moment, I wasn't sure who I was angrier at them for their cruelty, or myself for letting them believe I was nothing. The night blurred after that. Tanya moved on. The awards continued. The music kicked in a country song, blaring through crackling speakers. I stayed in my chair, my tea gone, my hands still. Nobody noticed when I left the screen door creaking as I stepped into the night. The parking lot was quiet, the stars sharp above the dark pines. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove home, the road unspooling like a question I couldn't answer. I didn't cry. I'd learned long ago how to hold things and how to carry weight without breaking. But as I pulled into my driveway, my house dark and still, I sat there, my hands on the wheel, and felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not yet. Not grief, not quite. It was something older, heavier, like a promise I'd made to myself, in a life nobody knew, a life I'd locked away, but never forgotten. I stepped out of the car, the night air cool against my skin. I looked up at the stars so bright they seemed to hum, and I whispered to myself, they don't know. And for the first time that night, I felt the faintest spark of something, maybe strength, maybe defiance, flicker in my chest. Sometimes in the quiet of my house, when the world is asleep, and the only sound is the hum of the refrigerator, I let myself remember. Not the Evelyn who folds laundry or waters the geraniums on the porch, but the other one. The one who existed before the navy dresses and the babysitting, before the family reunions and the folding chairs in the back. My name is Evelyn Marie Kessler, and if you're still here with me, thank you. It means something to have you listening, to know you're walking this road with me. If you want to hear what comes next, every secret, every truth, please hit that subscribe button. It keeps me going knowing you're out there. The memory comes like a tide, slow at first, then overwhelming. I'm 25 again, standing in a windowless room, deep inside a government building, the air cold and sharp, with the smell of metal and coffee. My hair is pulled back tight, my uniform crisp, my boots polished to a mirror shine. The screens around me glow blue lines of code, scrolling faster than most people could read. But I could read them. I could see patterns where others saw chaos, connections, where others saw noise. That's what made me good. That's what made them call me Cypher, though nobody ever said it to my face. I was one of the youngest in the room, the only woman surrounded by men with gray hair and bars on their shoulders. They didn't trust me at first. I saw it in their glances, their raised brows when I spoke. But I didn't care. I wasn't there to be liked. I was there to build something unbreakable, something that could hold a nation's secrets in its bones. The NSA had recruited me, straight out of grad school, plucked me from a lecture hall where I'd been scribbling equations on a chalkboard, my hands dusted white. They saw what I could do, how I could weave systems so tight, not even a whisper could slip through, and they gave me a purpose. The training was brutal. Not the kind you see in movies with obstacle courses and shouting drill sergeants, but the kind that breaks you quietly. Months in isolation, learning to think like the enemy, to anticipate moves nobody else could predict. I spent nights awake, my eyes burning mapping networks in my head, testing them against invisible threats. I learned to live with pressure, to carry it like a second skin. I learned to keep secrets, not just from the world, but from myself, locking them away, so deep they couldn't touch me. There was a mission once, only once, that I'll let myself speak of even now. It was 2004, and I was stationed somewhere, I can't name a place, where the air tasted of dust and the sky was always gray. I worked in a bunker, my team tasked with securing a network that held, let's just say it held things that couldn't fall into the wrong hands. We were under attack, not with bullets but with code. Someone somewhere was trying to tear through our defenses, and they were good, better than good. I sat at my terminal for 3 days straight, my fingers flying, my mind ablaze. I didn't eat, I didn't sleep. I built walls faster than they could tear them down, rerouted traps, rewrote protocols on the fly. When it was over, when the attack stopped, and the network held my commanding officer, a man who never smiled, looked at me and said, "Kessler, you just saved us all." I didn't feel like a hero. I felt tired. My hands shook. As I pushed back from the desk, my vision blurry. I wanted to call my mother to hear her voice, but I couldn't. Not from there, not about this. I went back to my bunk, lay down, and stared at the ceiling, the weight of what I'd done settling into me. It wasn't glory, it was duty, and it was mine. Those years changed me. I missed birthdays, weddings, Christmases. My cousins stopped asking where I was. My aunts stopped sending cards. When I did come home on leave or between assignments, I was different, quieter. They'd ask what I did, and I'd say tech stuff and let it drop. I couldn't tell them about the bunkers, the codes, the nights I woke up, gasping, dreaming of systems collapsing. I couldn't tell them about the oath I'd taken, the one that bound me to silence even now. So they filled in the blanks themselves. Evelyn's a loner. Evelyn's got no ambition. Evelyn's just there. I left the NSA in 2015, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. My body was fine, but my mind, it was fraying at the edges. Too many years of high stakes, too many nights without sleep, too many secrets I couldn't share. They offered me a desk job, but I couldn't sit in an office pretending the world wasn't still out there waiting to break. So I came home, to Virginia, to the house my mother left me with its creaking porch and its too big kitchen. I told myself I'd find a new life, something simple. I took up gardening, started babysitting for my cousin's kids, let the town wrap me in its smallness. But the truth is, I never left that other Evelyn behind. She's still in me, in the way I walk, the way I listen, the way I notice things nobody else does. Sometimes when I'm alone, I open the lockbox in my closet. Inside is a single medal, small and heavy with no inscription. Next to it, a folded letter from a man whose name I can't say, thanking me for what I did. I don't read it anymore. I don't need to. I know what it says. I know what it cost. Back in the present, I'm sitting on my couch, the TV off the house, dark except for a single lamp. It's the night after the reunion, and my navy dress is draped over a chair, its hem still creased from where I sat against the wall. I can still hear Tanya's voice, the laughter, the way the room felt like it was closing in. I close my eyes and I'm back in that bunker, my fingers steady, my mind clear. I'm Cypher again, untouchable, unbreakable. But then I open my eyes and I'm just Evelyn, the babysitter, the spinster, the woman nobody sees. Loneliness is a strange thing. It's not the absence of people, it's the absence of being known. I have neighbors who wave cousins, who call when they need a favor, a church I go to on Sundays. But none of them know me, not really. Sometimes I forget I was ever anything but this forgotten, overlooked a shadow in my own life. And yet there's a part of me that's still bound by that oath, that secrecy, that trauma. It's why I don't fight back when Tanya laughs, why I don't tell them who I was. I can't. Not because I don't want to, but because I promised I wouldn't. And promises to me are sacred. I stand up, walk to the kitchen, pour a glass of water. My hands are steady, but my chest is tight, like it's holding something too big to name. I think about the reunion, about the certificate, about the way I sat there silent, letting them define me. And I wonder, not for the first time, if I've let this go on too long. If I've let myself disappear too completely. Outside the night is quiet, the stars bright against the Virginia sky. I step onto the porch, the boards creaking under my feet, and I look up. The stars feel closer here, like they're watching. I think about that bunker, about the metal, about the woman I used to be. And I whisper so soft even the stars can't hear I'm still here. There's a kind of strength in silence, the kind nobody notices until it's too late. It's not the loud fist-pounding kind, not the kind that demands a stage. It's the kind that holds you up when the world tries to push you down, the kind that lets you smile when your heart is breaking. My name is Evelyn Marie Kessler, and I've carried that strength for years, though it's cost me more than I can say. If you're still here listening to my story, I'm grateful. It feels like you're sitting across from me sharing this weight. If you want to hear what happens next, every truth, every moment, please hit that subscribe button. It means the world to know you're with me. The days after the reunion blur into the rhythm of my life, the one I've built to keep the pieces together. I wake at dawn, the sky still gray, and make coffee in the old percolator that was my mother's. I water the geraniums on the porch, their red petals bright against the peeling paint. I drive to the grocery store, nod at the cashier who calls me Miss Evelyn, and come home to a house that's too quiet. On the surface, it's simple, small, the life of a woman the town thinks it knows. But beneath it there's a current, a pull I can't escape, like the tide of who I used to be. My cousins don't call unless they need something. Tanya texts me a week after the reunion, asking if I can watch her kids on Saturday. "You're so good with them, Ev," she writes as if that's all I am. I say yes because I always do. Her twins, 8 years old and wild as colts, tear through my living room, leaving crumbs on the couch and fingerprints on the walls. I don't mind. They're loud and alive, and their laughter fills the house with something other than silence. But when Tanya picks them up, she barely looks at me. "Thanks, Ev," she says, all ready. Halfway out the door, her phone pressed to her ear. She doesn't ask how I'm doing. She never does. The town has its own way of boxing me in. At church on Sundays, the ladies in the pews smile and pat my hand, but their eyes slide past me, landing on younger women with husbands and babies. "You're so sweet to help out Evelyn," they say, as if my life is a favor I'm doing for others. They call me spinster behind my back. I've heard it whispered in the fellowship hall over coffee and donuts. They don't mean it cruelly, not always, but it stings just the same. To them, I'm a fixture, like the hymnals or the creaky organ, dependable but unremarkable. I could tell them. I could stand up in the middle of the service, my voice steady, and say I built systems that kept this country safe. I worked in rooms you'll never see, with people whose names you'll never know. But I don't. Not because I'm ashamed, but because I can't. The oath I took all those years ago still holds me its weight, as real as the metal in my lockbox. And besides, what would it change? They'd nod, smile, maybe think I was exaggerating. So I keep quiet, let their words slide over me, and carry on. It's not just the town, it's family too, and that cuts deeper. At a cousin's barbecue last month, I sat on a lawn chair in the shade, watching the younger women nieces, cousins' wives flock together, their voices bright, as they talked about their careers, their vacations, their lives. They didn't invite me to join them, not out of malice, but because I didn't fit. I was too old, too plain, too. Nothing in their eyes. My cousin Derek, Tanya's brother, was worse. He leaned against the picnic table, a beer in his hand, bragging about his new job in tech sales. Big money, big deals. He said loud enough for everyone to hear. Then he looked at me, his grin sharp. What about you? Ev still changing diapers for Tanya's kids? The laughter that followed was like a blade, quick and clean. I smiled, sipped my lemonade, and said something like that. Inside I was burning, not with anger, but with something heavier, grief. Maybe for the Evelyn they'd never know. I wanted to tell him about the nights I spent rewriting code under pressure that would have broken him, about the lives that depended on my steady hands. But I didn't. I sat there, my jaw tight, my eyes on the grass, and let the moment pass. I'm kind to them anyway. When Lorraine's car breaks down, I drive her to the mechanic. When Tanya's youngest has a fever, I bring over soup and a thermometer. When Ray needs help with his taxes, I sit at his kitchen table, my calculator clicking, and sort it out. They thank me sometimes, but it's quick distracted, like they're checking a box. I don't do it for their gratitude. I do it because it's what I know. Taking care of what needs. Taking care of no matter the cost. There are moments, though, when the weight feels too much. Late at night when the house is dark and the stars are bright outside my window, I sit on the edge of my bed, my hands folded, and I feel it all. The years I gave to something bigger than myself. The secrets I still carry heavy as stones. The loneliness of being unseen, not just by the town or my family, but by the mirror sometimes. I wonder if I made the right choice, coming back here, letting myself fade. I wonder if I've betrayed that other Evelyn, the one who was fearless, who was Cypher. But then I remember her. Not the hero, not the legend, but the woman who sat in that bunker, her hands shaking. After 3 days without sleep, knowing she'd done what nobody else could. I remember the letter in my lockbox, the one that said, "You made the difference, Kessler." And I know I haven't betrayed her. She's still here in the way I hold my head up, in the way I keep going, even when it hurts. A few weeks after the reunion, I'm at the diner sitting alone at the counter with a cup of coffee. The waitress, a girl barely out of high school, calls me ma'am and refills my cup without asking. Across the room, a group of women, younger, louder, talk about their plans for the weekend. One of them, my niece Jenna, glances my way and waves, but it's quick, perfunctory. She doesn't come over. I sip my coffee, the steam curling against my face, and listen to their laughter. They're planning a trip to the city, something about a concert, a new restaurant. I'm not invited, and I don't expect to be. But it stings just a little, like a paper cut you don't notice until later. The diner door jingles, and Tanya walks in her heels, clicking her purse slung over her shoulder. She sees me and smiles, but it's the kind of smile that doesn't mean anything. "Hey, Ev," she says, sliding onto a stool a few seats down. "You doing okay?" I nod, say fine, and she's already looking at her phone, scrolling her nails, tapping the counter. I could tell her about the reunion, about how her words cut about the certificate I didn't take. But I don't. I finish my coffee, leave a tip, and walk out the bell, jangling behind me. Back home, I stand in my kitchen, the light soft through the curtains. I think about the years I spent in rooms without windows, the weight of a nation on my shoulders. I think about the woman. I was the one who didn't flinch, who didn't break. And I think about the woman I am now, the one who babysits, who smiles, who stays quiet. They're the same, I realize. They've always been the same. I open the lockbox just for a moment and touch the metal inside. It's cold, heavy, real. I close the box locket and put it away. Then I go outside the evening air, cool against my skin, and water the geraniums. The stars are coming out bright and steady, and I feel that strength again, the quiet kind, the kind that's mine. There's a moment before you step into a room when you can still turn back, when the world hasn't yet decided what it wants from you. I've stood in that moment 1,000 times, my hand on the door, my heart a quiet drum. But I always go in. My name is Evelyn Marie Kessler, and I'm telling you this because it's the only way I know to make sense of it. If you're here listening, you're keeping me steady, and I'm grateful. If you want to hear what comes next, every heartbeat, every truth, please hit that subscribe button. It's like a hand reaching out, telling me you're still there. It was early October, the Virginia air turning crisp, the leaves burning red and gold along the highways. The invitation came in the mail, a cream-colored envelope with my name in careful script. The Kessler family was hosting a memorial dedication at the community center, a plaque to honor my Uncle Ray's years of service as a volunteer firefighter. It was more than a family event. The town was invited, along with local officials, maybe even someone from the state. There'd be speeches, a reception, a chance for the Kesslers to shine in the spotlight. I held the invitation in my kitchen, the paper smooth under my fingers, and felt a familiar ache. I didn't want to go. I knew what it would be, crowded loud, another night of being overlooked. But Ray had been kind to me once, and I'd promised my mother I'd show up for family no matter what. I almost didn't go. The morning of the event, I stood in my bedroom, my navy dress laid out on the bed, my flats polished beside it. I looked in the mirror, my hair pinned back, my face plain but composed, and thought, why bother? I could stay home water. The geraniums read a book. Let the evening pass like any other. But something pulled me forward, maybe duty, maybe stubbornness, maybe the faint hope that this time might be different. I put on the dress, slipped on the flats, and drove to the community center, the invitation tucked in my purse like a weight. The parking lot was fuller than it had been at the reunion. Cars lined up in neat rows, some with government plates I recognized, but didn't linger on. The community center was dressed up for the occasion. String lights draped along the eaves, a red carpet runner leading to the entrance, a podium set up on a small stage inside. People milled around their voices, a low hum, their Sunday best creased and starched. I saw my cousins near the front, Tanya, in a bright red dress. Derek in a suit that looked too tight. Lorraine was fussing over the guest book, her glasses slipping down her nose. Ray stood by the stage, shaking hands, his smile tired but proud. I slipped inside my flats, silent on the carpet, and found a seat in the back row near the wall. The chair was hard, the kind that makes you sit up straight, and I smoothed my dress over my knees, my purse in my lap. Nobody noticed me come in. Not Tanya, who was laughing with a group of women near the stage. Not Derek, who was checking his phone, his thumb scrolling. Not even Ray, who was too busy being the center of attention to see me. I was used to it by now, the way a room could swallow me whole, but it still stung like a bruise. You forget until you press it. The ceremony began with a prayer, the pastor's voice deep and steady. Then came the speeches first, the mayor, then a fire chief. Their words full of praise for Ray's courage, his selflessness, his years of running into burning buildings. The crowd clapped, nodded, some wiping their eyes. I clapped too, my hands soft, my eyes on the podium. Ray deserved it, I thought. He'd earned this moment. But as the speeches went on, I felt the room shift, the air growing heavier, like it was holding its breath. Tanya took the stage, her heels clicking, her smile wide. She thanked everyone for coming, her voice smooth, practiced. This family, she said, we've always been about service, about showing up. Uncle Ray's a hero, but he's not the only one. We've got teachers, nurses, business owners in this room. She gestured to the front rows where my cousins sat, their faces glowing with pride. We're a family that makes things happen. I sat there, my hands still, my jaw tight. She didn't mention me. Not a word about the babysitting, the favors, the quiet ways I'd held the family together. I didn't expect her to, not really, but the omission landed like a slap. The crowd clapped again, and I joined in, my hands barely touching my eyes on the floor. I thought about the reunion, about the certificate, about the way Tanya's laughter had cut through me. I thought about leaving, slipping out before anyone noticed, but my legs wouldn't move. I stayed pinned to the chair by something I couldn't name. The reception started, people standing, mingling, their voices rising. I stayed in my seat, watching the room move without me. Tanya was at the center of it all, her red dress like a flame, her laugh carrying over the chatter. Derek was by the bar, telling a story to a group of men, his hands waving. Lorraine was passing out programs, her smile tight but polite. I saw Ray still near the stage, shaking hands with a man in a dark suit, someone I didn't recognize, but whose posture, straight deliberate, made my stomach tighten. I looked away, sipped the water I'd taken from a table, and told myself to breathe. Then it happened. Not loud, not dramatic, but small, like the first crack in a dam. Tanya's voice, sharp and bright, cut through the noise. "Evelyn, there you are hiding in the back." Heads turned and I felt the room's eyes on me, heavy and curious. I froze my water glass halfway to my lips, my heart a sudden fist in my chest. Tanya was walking toward me, her smile too wide, her heels clicking. "Come on, Ev, don't be shy. Say hi to everybody. You're practically part of the furniture here." The laughter came quick and cruel, rippling through the crowd. Not everyone laughed, some looked away, uncomfortable, but enough did that it felt like the air was thinning. I set my glass down, my hand, steady, my face composed. But inside I was unraveling. I wanted to stand, to walk out, to let the door slam behind me, but I didn't. I smiled, small and tight, and said, "Just here for Ray." My voice soft but clear. Tanya laughed again, patted my shoulder like I was a child, and turned back to her friends, already forgetting me. I sat there, my hands in my lap, my eyes on the stage. The man in the dark suit was still talking to Ray, but now he was looking my way, his gaze sharp, like he was seeing something nobody else did. I looked down, my pulse loud in my ears, and told myself it was nothing. Just a stranger, just a moment. But the air felt different now, charged like the seconds before a storm breaks. The ceremony was winding down the crowd, thinning people, heading to their cars. I could have left then, slipped out with the others, but I stayed. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Something I'd been waiting for, even if I didn't know it yet. I sat in my chair, my purse still in my lap, and watched the room empty, the lights, dimming, the red carpet runner curling at the edges. And I thought, this is it. This is where it happens. There's a stillness before everything changes, a moment so quiet, you can hear your own heartbeat. It's like the world holds its breath, waiting for the truth to step into the light. I've felt that stillness before in rooms where secrets were kept, where lives hung on the edge of my decisions, but never like this. My name is Evelyn Marie Kessler, and I'm telling you this because it's the moment I stopped being invisible. If you're still here listening, you're my anchor, and I'm grateful. If you want to hear what comes next, every shock, every heartbeat, please hit that subscribe button. It's like a promise that you'll stay with me. The community center was emptying out, the air thick with the scent of coffee and fading perfume. The red carpet runner was scuffed now, the string lights flickering like they were tired. I sat in my back row chair, my navy dress creased, my purse still in my lap, my hands folded over it like a shield. The crowd had thinned, just a few stragglers left, my cousins near the stage. Ray shaking hands, Tanya's laugh still cutting through the hum. I should have left. I should have slipped out with the others, driven home to my quiet house, and let the night fade, but I didn't. Something held me there, a pull I couldn't name, like a thread stretched tight across years. The man in the dark suit was still by the stage talking to Ray. He was older, maybe 60, with a face carved from stone. Sharp jaw-gray eyes, the kind of posture that said he'd spent his life in rooms that mattered. His suit was tailored, his tie, a deep blue, and there was a pin on his lapel. Small but distinct one I recognized, but didn't let myself think about. I'd seen men like him before, in places I don't talk about, places where the air was cold and the stakes were higher than anyone could know. I looked away, my pulse quickening, and told myself it was nothing. Just a man, just a moment. Then the room changed. It wasn't loud, not at first. It was a shift, like the air itself tightened. The double doors at the back swung open, and a new group entered, 3 men, 1 woman, all in suits. Their movements precise, their eyes scanning the room. The crowd didn't notice not right away, but I did. I always notice. It's what kept me alive in those other rooms, those other years. The woman carried a briefcase, her face calm but focused. The men flanked her, their hands loose but ready, and leading them was another man taller, older, his hair silver, his presence like a wave you feel before it hits. I knew him. Not by name, not yet, but by the way he moved. The way the room bent toward him. The chatter died. Tanya's laugh stopped mid-breath. Ray turned, his smile faltering. The man in the dark suit by the stage straightened, his eyes locking onto the newcomers. And me, I sat there, my hands still, my heart a drum in my chest, and I felt that stillness that moment before everything breaks open. The silver-haired man stepped forward, his shoes clicking on the linoleum, and the room went quiet, so quiet I could hear the ceiling fan creaking above. He scanned the crowd, his gaze deliberate, like he was looking for something specific. Someone specific. My cousins shifted uncomfortable, their eyes darting. Lorraine clutched her program, her glasses slipping. Derek put his phone away, his smirk gone. Tanya stood frozen, her red dress suddenly too bright, too loud. The man's eyes moved over them, past them, and then impossibly, unbearably, they landed on me. I stopped breathing. My hands tightened on my purse, my knuckles white, but I didn't move. I didn't blink. I sat there in my navy dress in my back row chair and felt the weight of his gaze like a spotlight I couldn't escape. He took a step toward me, then another, the room parting around him. The woman with the briefcase followed, her heels soft but steady, the men close behind. The man in the dark suit was moving now too, crossing the room, his face unreadable but urgent. "Ma'am," the silver-haired man said, his voice low resonant, carrying the kind of authority that doesn't need to shout. He was standing in front of me now, close enough that I could see the lines around his eyes, the faint scar above his brow. Evelyn Marie Kessler. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. My name in his mouth felt like a key, turning in a lock, opening something I'd kept shut for years. The room was silent, every eye on us, but I couldn't look away from him. I knew who he was now, though my mind fought to deny it. I'd seen his face in briefings, in secure files, in moments when the world felt too big to hold. He was the chairman of the NSA, a man whose name carried weight in rooms I'd left behind. "We've been looking for you," he said, and there was something in his voice, not just respect, but reverence, like he was speaking to someone who mattered, someone who'd changed things. I shook my head, a small movement, instinctive, because this couldn't be happening, not here, not now. But he didn't waver. He stepped closer, his hands clasped in front of him, and said, "May I speak with you, please? It's important." I stood, my legs unsteady, my purse slipping to the chair. The room was a blur, faces and lights smearing together, but I felt their stares, Tanya's, Derek's, Lorraine's rays, like needles in my skin. I smoothed my dress, lifted my chin, and said, "Of course." My voice was soft, but it carried, and I saw the man in the dark suit nod like he'd been waiting for it. The chairman gestured toward the stage, and I followed, my flats, silent, my heart loud. The woman with the briefcase was at my side, her presence steady, like she was guarding something precious. The men fanned out their eyes on the crowd, and I realized they were protecting me. Me, Evelyn Marie Kessler, the babysitter, the spinster, the woman in the back row. The thought was so absurd, I almost laughed, but my chest was too tight. My mind racing too fast. We reached the stage, and the chairman turned to face the room. The crowd was frozen, their faces a mix of confusion, curiosity, and something else, fear maybe, or awe. Tanya's mouth was open, her red dress a stark contrast to her pale face. Derek was gripping his chair, his knuckles white. Lorraine's program was crumpled in her hands. Ray was staring, his eyes wide, like he was seeing me for the first time. The man in the dark suit stepped forward, his voice clear, cutting through the silence. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "I need your attention." He glanced at the chairman, who nodded, then back at the crowd. "We're here to honor someone who's been overlooked for too long, someone whose work has kept this nation safe in ways you'll never fully understand." He turned to me, his eyes steady, and said, "Ms. Kessler, would you join us up here, please?" I didn't move, not at first. My feet were rooted, my mind screaming that this wasn't real, that I was still cipher, still hidden, still bound by silence. But the chairman's hand was on my arm, gentle but firm, and he said, "It's time, Evelyn." And somehow I stepped forward, into the light, into the moment I'd never expected to face. There's a moment when the world splits open, when everything you've carried in silence spills into the light. It's not loud, not like you'd expect. It's quiet, sharp, like the sound of a lock turning after years of rust. Standing on that stage, I felt the weight of my past rushing forward, meeting the present, and I wasn't ready. My name is Evelyn Marie Kessler, and I'm telling you this because it's the moment I became whole again. If you're still here listening, you're my witness, and I'm grateful. If you want to hear what comes next, every truth, every echo, please hit that subscribe button. It's like a hand holding mine, keeping me steady. The community center stage was small, the wood creaking under my flats, the spotlight hot against my skin. The crowd was a sea of faces blurred but sharp at the edges. Tanya's red dress, Derek's clenched jaw, Lorraine's crumpled program, Ray's wide eyes. They were silent, every one of them, their breaths held waiting for something they didn't understand. I stood there, my navy dress plain, my hands empty, my heart a storm I couldn't calm. The chairman of the NSA was at my side, his presence like a wall solid and unyielding. The man in the dark suit, the one who'd first called me forward, stood at the podium, his voice steady, but charged like he was unveiling something sacred. "Evelyn Marie Kessler," he said, and my name in his mouth was a blade cutting through the room's silence. Most of you know her as a sister, a cousin, a neighbor. A woman who's always there, always helping, always quiet. He paused, his eyes sweeping the crowd, then landing on me soft but piercing. But that's not who she is, not all of her, not even close. I shook my head, a small, instinctive movement, my lips parting to protest. I wanted to say, "Stop, please, this isn't mine to claim." I'd spent years hiding, bound by oaths, by choices, by the need to keep the world safe from what I knew. But the chairman's hand was on my arm, light but firm, and he leaned in, his voice low just for me. "You've carried this long enough, Evelyn. Let us carry it now." I swallowed, my throat tight, my eyes burning. The man at the podium continued, his voice, rising not loud, but commanding the kind that makes you listen. "For 20 years, Ms. Kessler served this nation in ways few ever will. She was a cyber architect for the National Security Agency, one of the best we've ever had. They called her Cypher, not a nickname, but a title earned through sacrifice and skill. She designed the networks that protect our most sensitive operations systems, that stopped threats you'll never hear about, threats that could have changed the world." The room was so quiet, I could hear my own pulse loud and unsteady. My cousins were frozen, their faces pale, their eyes locked on me. Tanya's hands were at her sides, her red dress no longer bold, but stark like a wound. Derek's mouth was open, his phone forgotten. Lorraine's glasses were fogged, her program slipping to the floor. Ray was gripping the back of a chair, his knuckles white, his expression a mix of shock and something else, regret, maybe, or recognition. The man in the dark suit turned to me, his voice softening, but no less clear. "Ms. Kessler, you saved lives. You built walls nobody could break, and you did it without seeking glory. You did it because it was right. And tonight we're here to say thank you." He stepped back, and the chairman took his place, his silver hair catching the light, his presence filling the room. He looked at me, not at the crowd, and his eyes held something I hadn't seen in years. Respect, unfiltered, unguarded. "Evelyn," he said, and the use of my first name felt intimate, like a door opening. I've read your file. I've seen what you did in 2004 in that bunker when the world was watching and you didn't flinch. I've seen the reports, the ones that don't have your name but should. You're the reason we're standing here safe today. I couldn't breathe. My hands were trembling, my knees weak, but I stood tall, my chin lifted because that's what Cypher did. That's what I'd always done. The chairman reached into his pocket, pulled out a small velvet box, and opened it. Inside was a pin, simple but unmistakable, the kind given only to those who've served at the highest levels. This isn't a medal, he said, his voice steady. You've got those already. This is a marker, a reminder that we see you, that we know. He stepped forward, pinned it to my dress, his fingers careful, deliberate. The crowd gasped a soft collective sound, and I felt the room shift the weight of their stares, changing from curiosity to awe. I wanted to look away to hide, but I didn't. I stood there, the pin cold against my chest, and let the moment hold me. Then the memory came unbidden, sharp as a blade. I was in that bunker again, 2004. The air thick with dust, my terminal glowing, my fingers flying. 3 days without sleep, my eyes burning my mind a razor's edge. The attack was relentless code, slamming against our defenses like waves against a cliff. I built traps, rerouted systems, rewrote protocols in real time. My team silent around me, trusting me to hold the line. When it was over, when the network held, my commanding officer looked at me, his face gray with exhaustion, and said, "Kessler, you're a miracle." I didn't feel like a miracle. I felt hollow, spent, but alive. I'd done what I was trained to do, what I was born to do, and I'd carried it alone ever since. The chairman stepped back, and the woman with the briefcase came forward. Her face calm but warm. She opened the case, pulled out a folded document, and handed it to me. "This is a commendation," she said, her voice clear, meant for the room. "Signed by the Director of National Intelligence. It's not classified anymore, Ms. Kessler. You can share it if you choose." I took it, my hands steady now, the paper heavy in my fingers. I didn't look at it. I didn't need to. I knew what it said, what it meant. I looked at the crowd instead, at the faces I'd known all my life, the ones who'd laughed, who'd called me babysitter, who'd left me in the back row. They weren't laughing now. They were silent, their eyes wide, their mouths tight. Tanya's hands were clasped, her nails digging into her palms. Derek was staring at the floor, his shoulders slumped. Lorraine was crying soft and quiet, her glasses in her hand. Ray was still gripping the chair, his eyes locked on me like he was seeing a stranger. I wanted to speak, to say something to fill the silence, but I couldn't. My throat was too full, my chest too tight. I stood there, the pin on my dress, the commendation in my hands, and let the moment speak for itself. The chairman nodded a small gesture, and the man in the dark suit stepped forward again. "Miss Kessler," he said, "you don't owe anyone an explanation, but if you want to say something, now's the time." I looked at him, then at the crowd, and for the first time in years, I felt seen. Not as the babysitter, not as the spinster, but as me, Evelyn, Cypher, the woman who'd carried a nation's secrets and never asked for thanks. I opened my mouth, my voice soft but clear, and said, "I did my job. That's all." The room exhaled a sound like a wave breaking, and in that moment I felt the weight lift just a little, like a door opening to let the light in. The air changes when truth settles in. It's not just the silence, it's the way people shift, the way their eyes soften or harden, the way they see you anew. Standing on that stage, I felt it like a tide, turning, pulling everything toward me. I wasn't used to it being seen. I'd spent years hiding, carrying secrets heavier than stone, but now they were out, and I couldn't take them back. My name is Evelyn Marie Kessler, and I'm telling you this because it's the moment I stopped running from myself. If you're still here listening, you're my strength, and I'm grateful. If you want to hear the end, every whisper, every piece, please hit that subscribe button. It's like a light in the dark, knowing you're there. The community center was still the kind of quiet that presses against your skin. The spotlight was warm, the pin on my navy dress, glinting the commendation heavy in my hands. The crowd was a gallery of faces frozen in the wake of the chairman's words, the man in the dark suit's revelation. My cousins, my aunts, my uncle, they weren't just looking at me. They were seeing me, maybe for the first time, and it was almost too much. I stood there, my flats rooted to the stage, my heart a steady ache, and let the moment hold me. The chairman stepped back, his presence still commanding, but softer now, like he was giving me space to breathe. The woman with the briefcase closed it with a soft click, her eyes on me warm and steady. The man in the dark suit stayed at the podium, his hands clasped his face, calm but expectant, like he was waiting for the room to catch up. And the crowd, they were waking up, their silence breaking into murmurs, soft gasps, the rustle of programs and shifting chairs. Ray was the first to move. He let go of the chair he'd been gripping, his hands trembling, and took a step toward the stage. His face was pale, his eyes wet, and when he looked at me, it wasn't with pride or awe. It was with something deeper, something like sorrow. "Evelyn," he said, his voice rough barely above a whisper, "why didn't you tell us?" I didn't answer, not right away. I looked at him, at the man who'd slipped me cookies when I was a girl, who'd nodded distractedly, at the reunion who'd let me fade into the background. I wanted to say, "Because you didn't ask, because I couldn't, because I promised," but instead I just shook my head, a small movement, and said it wasn't mine to tell. He nodded like he understood, though I knew he didn't, not fully. Nobody could not, unless they'd lived it, the bunkers, the codes, the nights when the world hung on your fingertips. He climbed the stage steps slow and deliberate, and when he reached me, he didn't speak. He just opened his arms, and I let him hug me, his flannel shirt rough against my cheek, his breath uneven. The crowd watched, and I felt their eyes, but I didn't care. For the first time in years, I felt like family. Then the others came. Lorraine was next. Her glasses off her face, streaked with tears. She didn't say anything, just took my hand. Her fingers cold and trembling and squeezed. Derek followed, his suit jacket, unbuttoned, his usual smirk gone. He stood in front of me, his mouth working like he was trying to find words. But all he managed was "Ev." I didn't know. I nodded, because what else could I do? I wasn't angry, not anymore. I was tired, but it was a good tired, like after a long day's work. Tanya was last. She'd stayed back, her red dress a beacon in the crowd, her arms crossed her face, a mask. But now she moved her heels, clicking, her eyes locked on mine. The room parted for her, and when she reached the stage, she stopped, her hands at her sides, her nails painted bright against her pale skin. "Evelyn," she said, and her voice was different, smaller, cracked like she was seeing the weight of her own words for the first time. "I'm sorry, for the reunion, for everything." I looked at her, at the cousin who'd laughed, who'd waved that certificate, who'd called me babysitter like it was my only name. I saw the guilt in her eyes, the regret, but I also saw something else, fear, maybe that I'd turn away. I didn't. I reached out, touched her arm, and said, "It's okay, Tanya." It wasn't, not completely, but it was a start. Her eyes filled, and she nodded, stepping back, her shoulders slumping like she'd been carrying something heavy too. The chairman cleared his throat, and the room's attention shifted back to him. "Miss Kessler," he said, his voice formal but warm, "we have one more thing to do." He nodded to the woman with the briefcase, who stepped forward, her hands holding a small wooden box. She opened it, and inside was a folded flag, the kind given to those who've served with honor. "This is for you," the chairman said. "Not from the NSA, but from us, from the people you protected." He took the flag, held it out, and I reached for it, my hands steady, but my chest tight. The fabric was cool, the stars and stripes sharp against my fingers. The crowd stood, a slow ripple, and then they were clapping, not loud, not wild, but steady like a heartbeat. I looked out at them, at the faces I'd known all my life, at the strangers who'd come to honor Ray, but stayed for me, and I felt something break open inside. Not pain, not anymore, but pride. Quiet, hard-won pride. The man in the dark suit stepped forward, his voice clear. "Ms. Kessler, on behalf of a grateful nation, we salute you." He raised his hand, a crisp salute, and the men who'd come with the chairman followed their movements, sharp, precise. I didn't salute back. I wasn't in uniform, wasn't that Evelyn anymore, but I nodded my eyes, meeting theirs, and that was enough. The crowd was still standing, some clapping, some crying, some just watching their faces. Soft with something like reverence, I saw the mayor in the front row, his tie loosened, his eyes wide. I saw the fire chief, his arms crossed, his nod, slow and deliberate. I saw my neighbors, the ones who'd called me Miss Evelyn and never asked about my past. Their hands clasped, their smiles, tentative but real. I stepped back, the flag in my arms, the pin on my dress, the commendation tucked against my side. The chairman shook my hand, his grip firm, his eyes steady. "You're a hero, Evelyn." He said soft enough that only I could hear. "Don't ever forget it." I nodded because words were too far away, and he stepped aside, letting me have the stage, letting me have the moment. I didn't speak again. I didn't need to. My silence said everything, my years of service, my years of hiding, my years of carrying what nobody else could. I looked at the crowd, at the family who'd hurt me, at the town, who'd overlooked me, and I let them see me. Not Cypher, not the babysitter, but Evelyn. Whole, unbroken, alive. The ceremony ended, the lights dimming, the crowd slowly dispersing. I stepped off the stage, my flat soft on the wood, and walked toward the back, the flag still in my arms. People reached out as I passed, their hands brushing my shoulders, their voices low with thanks, with apologies, with respect. I nodded, smiled, kept moving. I didn't stop until I was outside, the night air cool against my face, the stars bright above the pines. I stood there alone, the community center behind me, the flag heavy in my hands. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. I felt it, all the pain, the pride, the peace, and it was enough. The night has a way of holding you when the world quiets, and the stars feel like they're listening. Standing outside the community center, the flag in my arms, I felt it, a stillness that wasn't empty, but full, like the calm after a storm. I wasn't the same Evelyn who'd walked into that room hours ago, and I never would be again. My name is Evelyn Marie Kessler, and I'm telling you this because it's the end of one story and the beginning of another. If you've stayed with me this far, you've carried me, and I'm grateful. If you want to keep walking with me, please hit that subscribe button. It's like a bridge between us, keeping us connected. The parking lot was nearly empty now, just a few cars left under the sodium lights, their shadows long and soft. The community center's doors were closed, the string lights dark. The red carpet runner rolled up somewhere inside. I could still hear the echo of the chairman's voice, the weight of the pin on my dress, the rustle of the crowd as they stood for me. But out here it was just me, and the night, the Virginia air cool against my skin, the pines whispering in the breeze. I held the flag closer, its folds heavy, and let myself breathe. I drove home slowly, my hatchback rattling. Over the back roads, the stars bright through the windshield. My house was dark when I pulled into the driveway, the geraniums on the porch a faint red in the moonlight. I sat in the car for a moment, the engine off, the flag in my lap, and felt something settle inside me. Not triumph, triumph is loud, and this was quiet. It was peace, the kind that comes when you've carried something heavy for so long and finally set it down. Inside, I lit a single lamp, the light soft against the walls. I set the flag on the kitchen table next to the commendation, the velvet box with the pin open beside it. They looked out of place there among the chipped mugs and the grocery list pinned to the fridge, but they were mine. I touched the pin, its edges cool, and thought about the woman I'd been Cypher, the one who built walls nobody could break. I thought about the woman I was now, the one who babysat, who smiled, who stayed. And I realized they weren't different, not really. They were both me woven together, stronger for it. The next morning, life went on. I made coffee, watered the geraniums, drove to the diner for breakfast. The waitress called me Miss Evelyn, same as always, but there was a new look in her eyes, curious maybe, or respectful. Word had spread as it does in small towns. At church that Sunday, the ladies in the pews didn't just pat my hand. They hugged me, their whispers soft, with questions they didn't dare ask. I smiled, nodded, said it was a long time ago. They didn't need to know more. They saw me now, and that was enough. My family changed too, in small ways. Tanya called, her voice hesitant, asking if I wanted to come over for dinner. No kids, she said, almost shy, just us. I went and we sat at her table, the silence between us softer than it had ever been. Derek sent a text, short but real. I was a jerk, Ev. Let me make it up to you. Lorraine stopped by with a casserole. Her glasses fogging as she said, I should have known you were special. Ray was the quietest, but when he hugged me at the next family gathering, he held on longer, his voice thick, when he said, I'm proud of you, kid. I didn't need their apologies, not anymore. I'd carried their words for years, the laughter, the dismissal, the certificate waved like a joke. But now they were just echoes fading in the light of what I knew about myself. I was Evelyn Marie Kessler Cipher, the woman who'd saved lives in rooms nobody would ever see. I didn't need to prove it to them or to anyone. It was in my spine, in the way I walked, in the way I held my head up. But I want to tell you something, you who's listening. You who stayed with me through this story. You don't need to explain your past to anyone. You don't need to justify the things you've done, the choices you've made, the scars you carry. They're yours and they're enough. You are enough. I learned that on that stage under that spotlight when the truth came out and the world saw me. But I learned it even more in the quiet, after when I came home to myself. I opened the lockbox one last time the night after the ceremony. The metal was there, small and heavy, next to the letter I hadn't read in years. I took it out, held it in my palm, and felt its weight, not just the metal, but the years, the secrets, the sacrifices. I didn't need it anymore, not to remind me of who I was. I put it back, locked the box, and slid it into the closet where it belonged. Then I took the flag from the table, unfolded it, and draped it over the back of a chair. It wasn't a display, not a boast. It was a reminder, quiet and steady, of what I'd done, what I'd carried, what I'd earned. I stepped onto the porch, the night air cool, the stars bright above the pines. I looked at my hands, loose at my sides, and felt that peace again, deeper now, like a river running through me. I didn't need to be Cipher anymore, or the babysitter, or the spinster. I was Evelyn, and that was enough. So here I am speaking to you, my voice soft but clear, my heart open. If you're out there carrying your own secrets, your own pain, your own strength, know this: you don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to fight to be seen. Just keep going, keep carrying, keep being. The world will catch up one day, and when it does, you'll be ready. I was. I walked back inside, the porch boards creaking, and closed the door behind me. The house was quiet, the lamp still burning, the flag, a shadow in the corner. I turned off the light, climbed the stairs, and went to bed. The stars outside my window, bright and steady. And for the first time in years, I slept without dreaming.